Good morning, everyone. Hope this finds you well and all comfortable at the start of this new academic year, although I'm sure some of you feel it's not quite so new. We'll take a few minutes this morning to make sure that everyone's got time to join us. There's nothing worse than starting something and then you feel like you've missed a bit. So the webinar is being recorded. And you will get a recording and a follow-up email, so don't worry. Hopefully your weather's not too bad where you are this morning. Mine's a bit cloudy, although it does feel a little bit warmer this morning. It has felt a bit chilly some mornings this week, almost felt a bit frosty, and definitely feels like autumn is here. I'd love to know where some of you are calling in from today. I think last time we had someone from Saudi Arabia, so I wonder how far afield everyone is this morning. I'm actually in a small village, seaside village in North Wales, 5 minutes away from the beach, which is not great when it's wet and windy. So I wonder where you are all calling from this morning. You can pop that in the chat. I wonder how engaged everyone will be this morning. Or you might just be happy to sit there and relax with hopefully something warm to drink and a biscuit. Maybe we were just talking about dunking biscuits, whether you're a dunker or whether you're not a dunker. I'm definitely a dunker. Has anyone put a few in the chat? I'm sorry if you're seeing the side of my head, but I'm just so I can see. Oh, Portugal. Would it be in Essex? I'm an Essex girl. Lancashire, Stockport. It's not too far. Oldham. York, a place I would love to go. That's one of my sort of bucket list places that I really want to go. And now I'm in North Wales. I think it's only about 3 hours away, so it's not too bad. Bangkok this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you are, what time it is with you, Mark. So really far afield all this morning, so quite a range of places. So let me have a quick look at my time and see where we are. So again, just to say that if you do have any sort of AI assistance or anything, or transcription tools, please could you turn those off, because like I said, it will be recorded, and you'll get that in a follow-up email that you can watch at your own leisure or with other people within your school. So our audience today is going to be really a variety of roles within your organisations. Whether you're a leader, a subject leader, a teacher, this is definitely going to be the right place for you. So you can sit back and relax and listen. So I'm Nicola, and my role is to support schools in choosing the right assessment solutions. I've been a teacher and a senior leader in schools for over 20 years and had a real passion for teaching across the whole age range, but with many years in year 6, particularly looking at assessment, curriculum and teaching and learning. So this is a really exciting time for school leaders, teachers and us here at NFER. I'm also joined today by Claire, who's been at the heart of NFER's online assessment journey from the very, very beginning. Claire's worked closely with school leaders and pupils throughout the trialling process, gaining valuable first-hand feedback. She also supports schools with setting up the portals and guiding pupils through that process. We're fortunate to have her sharing her expertise with us today. We're also joined by Lisa and Rupal, who'll be supporting with questions throughout the webinar. Please don't hesitate to use that Q&A function or the chat. We're here to help. For those of you that have just joined us, welcome, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And like I said, the webinar will be recorded, so if you could turn off that AI assistance if you've got those. Thank you. So today's session, we're going to give you a brief introduction to NFER Online Assessments, which you may hear it called NOA or seen that in emails. Here are the two mascots. NOA is for years 3 and 4 on the left, and Fern for years 5 and 6 on the right. and they will engage and guide you and your pupils through their assessments. We want you to be able to see the school portal and the dashboard and how it works. Sample questions from both reading and maths tests will be shared with you today, all the way from years 3 to 6 tests. And we'll walk you through our reporting section of the portal so that you can see all the reports available to schools. Please feel free to ask those questions throughout the webinar, that's fine, and these will be answered throughout the day or throughout the session. And there'll also be an opportunity later for me to go through some of the key questions that might have come up or ones that may have come up before. And these will then be shared with you later in an email. So please do not be shy this morning. So how can NFER support you? Our online or digital tests are for Key Stage 2 pupils in reading and maths. NOA can be used across the full academic year, covering all 3 terms, or employed for individual terms, depending on what you use in your school. You can purchase year 3 to 6 on our website, so you're ready to go for this term's assessments, because it only takes the click of a button. NFER Online Assessments are available to purchase either as individual tokens or as 3-year subscriptions, enabling you to decide the best option that aligns with your own school. You can view more information about pricing on our website. Lisa or Rupal will pop this in the chat now so you can see that as a link. So you may ask, our tests are aligned with the English National Curriculum, are written with the STA framework for test providers as a guide. Something on everyone's lips, everybody I speak to will be, how can I save my teacher's time? Well, 70% of NOA questions are auto-marked to provide instant feedback and alleviate that marking time. The remaining 30% of teacher-marked items or questions to enable further insight on open-ending, or those show you type of working questions, those reasoning ones. Our years 3 to 6 trials acquired data from over 59,000 completed assessments, making them really reliable and robust, and something for you to compare with your own pupils. You'll be able to monitor and evidence pupil progression and identify learning needs and gaps through the reporting tool. NOA can be used on either desktop or tablet, Windows or Mac devices with the latest version of Chrome, Edge, Firefox or Safari. Our interactive mascots, like I mentioned earlier, Noah the Panda and Fern the Robot, help pupils navigate through practice questions and familiarisation materials before starting their marked assessment. Now I'm going to pass you over to Claire, like I said, to give us that all-important walkthrough, and I'll see you back near the end for the questions.
Thank you, Nicola. So good morning, everyone. So let me share my screen. And we will get straight on with our demonstration. So lots to show you in the next 25 minutes. So as Nicola's mentioned, I'll give you an insight into how you can set up and prepare to take the assessments. We'll look at a selection of questions from the different assessments over the different year groups. I will show you the small element of teacher marking and walk you through our reports. So here I'm logged in to the establishment portal. This is the environment that's used by schools to administer the tests. So in this main menu, we've got an administration icon, and this is where anyone who needs to log into the system, either as a staff member or a learner, will need creating. To get your learners onto the system, we would recommend exporting your learner data out of your MIS system as a CTF, and then you can easily import it into NOA. Underneath administration, we've got the NOA icon. So it's in here that your teachers will complete tasks to get ready for their learners to take the tests, and they will follow a logical process through these different menu items. So at the top, allocate learners to an assessment. So in here, you will see the different assessments that your school has purchased, and you will select the assessment that you want your class to take. Here, you'll be able to see your learner names, and you can select your learners and then review the selection. So on the review page, you can have a look, you can think whether any of these learners would benefit from extra time. So that would give them 25% extra time on top of the standard time for the test. You could also, if you need to, select a pupil and remove them if for whatever reason they're not going to actually take the assessment. So once you're happy that you've got all the names, all the learners that you want to sit the assessment, you can confirm. And that's going to take us directly to the passcodes page. So your learners will need a unique 6-character passcode to log in to take their tests. So we can see that that's generated here. So it can either be a common word made up of 2 3-letter words, or you can have numerical codes. So whatever you feel your learners would find easier to enter in. Next, in preparing to take the tests, we have some familiarization videos that you can access on this page. So these we recommend should be shared by the teacher as a group activity, and this will prepare the children and give them support on how to navigate through an assessment and how to answer the different question types that they'll find in the tests. Next, we have view test status. Let's have a look at that. So this page is handy as your assessments are in progress, as you can see who's completed their tests, who's still to start, who's maybe had to pause for whatever reason and needs to go back to complete the test. So you'll see the different statuses and where your learners are in the process. So let's have a look at the tests. This is the login page that your learners will see. So this is where they will enter their 6-character unique passcode. Provided they've entered in the correct passcode, they should see their name, and then they'll be able to see the tests that they are due to take. So the one I'm going to log into first of all is an example Year 3 reading assessment. These tests that I'm showing you are for demonstration purposes only. So in our live assessments, as for our paper tests, a reading assessment would be made up of 2 different tests. So don't worry that there's only one showing here. On our live assessments, there are still 2 tests to take. So we're going to click Start Test. That's going to take us into full screen mode, so that helps minimize any distractions. And I'm just going to pick out some of the different question types and some of the key features, just to give you that insight into the look and feel of the tests. So, like I say, this is an example Year 3 reading. All the reading texts are designed to be visually appealing and engaging. They can be navigated through using the different page numbers or using next and previous. They can make the text bigger, and then they can navigate through to see the questions. So the first question, this is a multiple choice question, ensuring they can identify details from the text. Okay, using next question to navigate through, so next question and back. This question is a comparison question where they need to match the correct description to the character, and this can be done by dragging and dropping, or by selecting and then selecting where you want that to go to. So your learners may find one of those methods easier. That may also depend on the device that they're using. This question requires text entry. And here we've got an extract from the text where they can show their understanding of word meaning. This is a scaffolded version, as they're only able to select from the highlighted words. And you can see as we move through the questions, this progress bar. So that's a visual indication of how they're progressing through the test. We've also got a tools menu So our tests have been designed with accessibility at the heart of them. So again, they can make the text bigger, they can zoom in, they can change the color contrasts. Again, that can help improve readability, and they are also able to pause the test. So the tests are timed, but if they need to take a break, they can pause it to come back to it later on. And once they've reached the final question, they are taken to a review page. So we encourage them to check their work so they can go back and look at questions that have been unattempted. And give it another go. And then they can again use back and next question to navigate through the test, or click on review to go straight back to this page. So the review page is great for making sure that they have completed all they are able to, and only when they're satisfied that they have given it their best shot, they can click on End Test to submit the test. So let's now have a look at a Year 6 reading test, just so you can see the increase in challenge. So this is a test I've been in previously and paused. So learners who want to go back to a paused test, they'll see this resume button. Again, they'll be taken into full screen. So we've got an example text here. Okay, the look and feel is the same as we saw for navigating through the reading text, and also navigating through the questions. So again, we've got an extract from the text. This one isn't scaffolded, so they could select any of these words. You will also find in Year 5 and Year 6 reading tests the inclusion of 3-mark questions such as this one. Obviously, these extended text questions they will find in SATs. This is a slightly scaffolded version, as the table will help them to structure a response. But that gives you an idea about the increase of challenge as they move through the year groups. So let's now have a look at some example maths questions. So I'm going to take you into a Year 3 maths reasoning test. So again, for our live product, a maths assessment is made up of 3 different tests, 1 arithmetic one and 2 reasoning ones. So in this example, our learner has already completed the arithmetic test and they are due to start the reasoning one. So again, just sort of navigating through to give you an idea of the look and feel of some of these questions. This is our ruler tool. So the ruler can be lifted up, moved around the screen and used to measure objects. We've got a pictogram question. Obviously, they would need to understand the key to get that correct. Got some fractions questions. On this one, they could select any 6 of these carrots to indicate 3/10 of the total amount of carrots. And this is a show your working question. So this question type allows for extended problem solving where marks can be awarded for working out shown, even if the final answer is incorrect. Your learners may find it helpful to have access to paper and pencil, or a whiteboard to support with working out, and then maybe copy it into this space later on. Obviously, they've also got the buttons above to help them enter their working out in. So that's my example working out. And I'm going to just make a mistake there in the final calculation, and we'll come back to that in marking. We saw drag and drop questions in reading. Again, we've got another example of that in maths. And still got the tools menu, still got the progress bar. So that's an idea of our maths test. And again, when they get to the end, they'll have a chance to review their work. So let's have a look at a bit of a mix actually of year 5 and year 6 questions. So in these year groups, we've got the inclusion of long multiplication questions and long division as well, laid out on a grid, you know, the kind of working grid that they will be familiar with using. They can use some of the tools at the top here to sort of strike through, or to add lines to complete their, sorry, that's me being, that's the erase, isn't it? Sorry, going mad. There we go, to add in lines. So different ways they can do their working out, and the symbols as well to add in those operations. So that's long multiplication. Like I said, there is also long division. A coordinates question where they can actually draw the shape by clicking on the dots here to draw lines between 2 different points. We have a, excuse me, protractor for angles questions. And another angle kind of question where actually they can indicate the angle on the protractor themselves. They can drag that around, or they can use these buttons to move it around or back by different increments. So show your working. Again, just the challenge is further. I think this one would require 4 different calculations to get to a final answer, including percentages and fractions. And on some of our fractions questions, the answer can be provided here as a mixed number or an improper fraction. Again, that just gives you an idea of the look and feel of some of the different question types. So once the tests have been completed, clearly as teachers, you will want to know how your learners have performed. So back on our establishment portal, back in the NOA icon, we had marking. So as Nicola mentioned earlier, at least 70% of each test is auto-scored, but there is a few questions that will require teacher marking. And this is so we can include those more explanatory, extended text questions where you can rely on your teacher judgment, where you can get that insight from still seeing the response and how your learners have approached the question, and so that we can make sure our tests do cover complete curriculum coverage. So let's take this year 3 maths test. I'm going to go with question 14. That was our year 3 show your working question we saw earlier. So in the marking pages, we can see the learner's name, we can see the question, we can see their response. So this is one that was done earlier. Clearly, they haven't got the question correct. We can see that by looking through the mark scheme on the right-hand side, and then we can score it by using the radio buttons. So that question is incorrect. There are no marks, and I can click on next to go straight to our next learner, which should be our learner that we just did. So again, looking at the mark scheme, yes, I have got sight of 8 and 24, but there was an error in the final calculation. But actually, because I can see the working out there, I can award 1 mark for that question. So you've got a whole class of learners to mark, but actually you can scroll through names question by question for just maybe 4 questions on average, maybe for each test. So that's going to save you a lot of time compared to having to mark a whole paper test. Okay, and once the questions are marked, you can go straight to reports to look at the analysis. So let's go to reports. And I'm just going to change my learner selection. So you can set a learner selection to tell the system which group of learners you want to work with. To demonstrate the reports, our tigers and lions will give us nice example data. So on our select report screen, we've got a range of reports on offer, all of which will help you monitor attainment and identify learning needs from a completed assessment. The reports also allow you to compare the performance of your learners to the national average of the standardization sample. When you select a report as well, you have a choice of whether you want to look at all learner reports, which would show you summary and individual detail. So as a class teacher, that's likely to be what you want to get the analysis of how each of your learners is doing. The summary reports just present those key patterns without the individual detail. That might possibly be more helpful to senior leaders, where you can just see how a whole learner selection is performing. And then a couple of individual reports for those instances when you've identified a learner you want to look at in a bit more detail. So we will have a look at some of these reports today on this webinar. So let's start off with the Attainment All Learners report. Okay. All of the reports are consistent in design and layout, so you'll always be able to see which report you're in, the learner selection you're looking at, the assessment that you're looking at the data for. You have a key, so this details the 5 bands that we use to show the comparison between your learner selection and the national average of the standardization sample. Or obviously showing in colours that are easy to understand. We have a lot of online guidance to support them across the system as well. So at the top of each report, there is a hyperlink where you can access additional information about this report. So the Attainment All Learners, this is probably your go-to report once your learners have completed an assessment, teacher marking's been done, and you want to find out the outcomes. How have your learners done, and are they performing better than or less well than the standardization sample? So the visual distribution bar, that shows you the % of learners from your learner selection that fall into each banding. So we can see here that I have more above and more well above, and actually more in line than the standardization sample, and less in the below and the well below. Then I've got some additional detail comparing our learners compared to the standardization sample. And then below that, we can see how each of our learners have achieved. So we've got the individual detail, a raw score per test, the assessment raw score, the standardized score, which is flagged, a percentile rank, and an age standardized score. Okay, all of these columns are sortable, so you might choose to sort by the standardized score to group the learners in the different bandings together. It's also possible to filter all of our reports by different pupil characteristic groups. So at the moment, this report is showing me data for 15 learners. If I go pupil premium and yes, that's going to update and show me data for 2 pupils who receive pupil premium, and I can see how each of those learners have performed. Just going to clear that off. It's also possible to export all of our reports to Excel. Okay. So it may be when you're looking at the attainment or learners, you identify in here an individual who's maybe performed differently to what you expect, or who you want to just look at in more detail. So let's take Ray, for example, who's showing on here as performing below the average of the standardization sample. If I go back to our report menu, and down to the individual attainment report, pick our learner. So again, we can see similar layout to what we just saw on the attainment or learners. We've still got our key. This time we can see the learner's standardized score displaying on the colored bar. So he's sort of in the middle-ish of the below the average category. We've got greater analysis here, where we can see the percent of questions, for example, that were omitted. So actually he omitted less than the average in the sample. We've also got an age standardized score and a percentile rank. And below that, we've got the breakdown of the different curriculum areas covered in the assessment and how our learner of the samples. Again, we can look down here and we can pick out the areas where maybe more support is required, such as fractions, geometry, and statistics in this example. Okay. Back to our select report screen. So there are some reports that you can run to help identify gaps. So the curriculum area ones and the question level ones. Let's go with curriculum area or learners. We can see that there is also a curriculum area summary report here, which we will come back to. So curriculum area. So this report is really helpful for analysing gaps, feeding into lesson planning and ensuring support is provided in the most meaningful areas. So summary data displays in this top table. That's easy to scan across and pick out where are our strengths, where are skills embedded, and maybe where are our weaknesses. So addition and subtraction, problem solving in measurement standing out there. Moving down, because this is an all learner report, I can see each of my learner names and how they performed in the different curriculum areas. Again, this is all sortable. So we were below in addition and subtraction. If I sort to group together the learners in the different bands, instantly I can see a group of learners who may benefit from an intervention or support in this area. We also saw we had a summary version of this report, and we can switch views when we're in a report. So if I click on view summary, that's going to take me to curriculum area summary. So here we can just see the curriculum areas and how our learner selection performed in comparison to the standardization sample. So this view may be of more interest to senior leaders who want to just gain those broader impressions. Okay. Let's now look at our question level reports. This time I will take the summary report to start off with. Question level summary. So this is that additional level of detail, isn't it, to go down to the question level, to have a look at the different questions covered in the test. We can see the curriculum area. We may choose to sort by that, so we can pick out the questions used to cover each curriculum area. And again, we've got that visual comparison, how we've performed compared to the sample. And this is the summary report, and I can switch to the all learner version by clicking on view learners. So again, we have the summary data detailed at the top. This time we've got that very visual grid here to instantly see the different response types. Obviously green correct, red incorrect, orange partially correct, and grey means no response was given, that question was omitted. So you've just got that very visual pick out maybe which learners are doing well, such as our first learner here, and maybe who's struggling more. So Ibrahim may be standing out slightly. We will come back to him. And also the questions that were more challenging. And we can use the view button to launch the question and a model response. So question 12, most of the learners got it either incorrect or partially correct. And we can see that question 12 required the pupils to give a more extended explanation. So last report I want to show you today is our individual responses report. And this is really the equivalent to sort of a paper answer booklet. So we identified Ibrahim in our question level report as maybe having a number of questions incorrect. We could then look at each of the answers he gave to see the different responses yet given. And we can see for most different questions whether it was correct or incorrect. So Ibrahim said the answer here was father. Father was incorrect. The correct answer was cousin. And each question and response show. So that's our individual response report. So just before I pass you back to Nicola, I also just want to show you about the help available. So we have this help widget available on every page. You can search for different online articles. Also, as you saw at the top of each report, there are helpful links scattered throughout the system in appropriate places. We have a number you can call to get through to our dedicated customer support desk, or you can raise a ticket and our help desk team will get back to you. So different routes to get support should you need it. So thank you. That's our demonstration. I will stop sharing and we can see what questions we've got.
Hello, sorry, you see my head down throughout this. Thank you very much, Claire, for that. I've been writing down some of those questions, etc., that you've been asking, so thank you very much for your engagement. So what do we have here? So Caroline asked about, are the paper and online tests the same? So our online tests, like Rupert said, are brand new and therefore an online, and they're designed particularly for an online environment. They don't replace the paper. They're not a replica of those. It's down for schools to have that choice, whether you want to use paper or whether you want to use an online test for your pupils. And they are curriculum aligned, so to the national curriculum. And we, like I said, we use the STA framework for test providers, a bit like your ARA that you would use in schools for arrangements for your tests. Ellie, you asked a question about trial periods. Or is there a sort of trial that you can use? There is a product tool that you can have that will give you 30 days access to be able to look at that, and it will give you the sample questions like Claire was showing you this morning, all the way from years 3 to 6. It will show you those reports so you can actually then look at them and see how you would use them in your school, and about that teacher marking. And you can navigate through the tour to see the bits that you want in your school. Rupert also did mention about the free tokens. So in follow up on this email, the email, sorry, that follows up from this, there is an opportunity to get 10 free tokens that you can sign up for. And this then gives you, again, 30 days access to the platform that Claire was showing you with those 10 tokens. So you could look at just maths, you could look at just reading, a mix of them, different year groups. You could get your school council to try it out and give you a bit of user research within your school. Your teachers could use it. It doesn't have to be then done by children. So that is something a bit like a taster almost. There is also a video sign up also on our website that hopefully Rupert or Lisa will put that in the chat as well. And that is almost like a whistle stop tour. I think it's about 9 minutes long, where you can have a look at that maybe with your English leads or your maths leads, for example. Ellie, I think you also asked about baseline assessments. So these are termly assessments that are summative. Some schools do tend to use them at the beginning of a term, so we don't have baseline and end of term, but you can choose when you choose to assess your pupils. And I know a particular school I've been working in have decided they're using those in September. They've already done those ones already, so you can choose those. Someone asked about working, I think below, I didn't see necessarily all the questions, but I've seen from a colleague about working, if children are working below the test. Now, if a child is, say, year 4 and they're receiving a curriculum for year 3, then you can allocate them a year 3 test, because that means you can assess that child at the level that they're receiving. Same with if they're a year 6 pupil and they're receiving year 3, that could be your EHCP children, but also Claire did mention about the extra time. So for your children that do have an EHCP and are receiving curriculum for the year group they're in, their chronological age, then you can award those children 25% extra time, like you would for your year 6 pupils if you're in England. I think there was something about the data. I think it was about Wandsworth. Again, I didn't see this. So if all the data can be exported into Excel, so that then can be sent off to councils if they then look at that data for you, that's not an issue. So that just exports into Excel and you can manipulate that how you want. Something also, I'll thank you, RuPaul, for putting in the video samples. Also, just something I will mention is about the tokens, because I mentioned it briefly earlier, and Claire, it's not necessarily on the platform, but if you do then have your 10 free tokens, think, oh, I actually quite like this, I think this would work for my school. There are tokens and subscriptions. So a token is where this gives you an assessment per pupil. So for example, if it's maths, now as Claire said, there's arithmetic and 2 reasoning. So a token gets you those 3 assessments for that child for that term. A token is valid for 365 days from the point of purchase. And like I said, on our screen, if you go onto like our shop or online shop, it's almost instant. As soon as you do that, then you can set up, and within a few days you could be assessing your pupils. There's no waiting for delivery or anything like that. For schools that want to make that bigger commitment, there is a 3-year subscription option as well, and this gives you all 3 terms of for the selected year groups, for years 3 to 6, for that whole of Key Stage 2. But you will be billed annually, so don't worry, you don't have to go, oh, I haven't got the money for that whole 3 years. There's a 3-year cost, but you're billed annually for that. Let's see if there's anything else. Timings, someone has before asked about timings. They are in line with our paper assessments and very similar to that. So it's not the children are doing anything different. It may be just split up slightly different, like the reading, where there are 4 texts, 2 texts in each test. I have to say that clearly, but the year 5 is then more in line with the year 6 SATs that you would normally see. Okay, I'm just going to share my last screen so you can see some of that key information, and I can go back over that again for you. Bar at the top. Like Claire was saying this earlier about the bar, you can then see that there. So as you can see on there, the Q&A that we've just been going through now, and there may be other ones that have come up before, that you will be able to see that in the follow-up email along with the recording. There's our contact email address on there. So if there's something bespoke for your school or you didn't want to necessarily put it in the chat, please feel free to email schoolspartnership@nfer.ac.uk. Like I said, there's the NOA product tour and the video samples that you can sign up on our website. They have been put in the chat this morning, so you can see that, and definitely have a look at those 10 free tokens in the email. So definitely, if anything else, click on that email and click on those 10 free tokens. Everyone likes a freebie. So I would like to sort of thank everybody for coming this morning. We know your time is precious, particularly in the mornings. And I'd also like to thank Claire, particularly for going through and walking us through the portal, as well as Lisa and Rupert for being on hand for those questions. So thank you very much. And have I hopefully given you maybe 1 minute back of your time? So thank you very much for joining us.